Okay, so we want to have our players be able to navigate through the game. We don't want them to just jump into the middle of a match like this, and we want to create a whole level select system and be able to navigate in and out of that when we're playing our game. So the first thing we need to do is create a main menu screen that we're going to use. So let's go up to, I'm going to file here, and I'm going to create a new scene, a basic 2D one. And we're going to start off by adding a canvas. So we're going to add a UI canvas. And as I've done before, I'm going to scale it with my screen size up to the kind of standard that we're using, 1920 by 1080. And then I'm going to add some text to it. So I'm just going to add UI Text Mesh Pro that we're just going to call, oops, it didn't let me name it. I hit enter by accident. I'm going to call this title. And I'm just going to say, let's call our game Match Me. Something nice and simple like that. And I'm going to drag this out nice, oops, wrong one. I'm going to drag this out nice and big like so. Then I'm going to set these values, so auto size up to 300. We'll make it bold. We'll center it. I'm also going to use a different font asset for this. If I click on my font asset, it takes me to the default ones that are added in here. I'm going to use this outline font. I'm going to duplicate that, just so I'm not editing the original, but I'm going to edit this one. Then I'm going to go back to my title here, and if I grab this outline one, I can drop this in, where can I drop it here? Down in the material section. I can drop this on here. Now we've got a simple outline. I'm going to change the color to be blue, like so. That kind of color I think should be okay. And I'm going to increase the thickness of this outline a little bit. So there we go. We've got something a little bit more interesting. Actually, no, I won't use outline. I'll use underlay. I think sometimes that can work a bit better. Let's pick that same color I just had a second ago. And again, alpha value all the way up. That's grand. And I'm going to dilate it. There we go. I think that actually looks a bit nicer around the edges. That's perfect. Then let's change our background color to be a nice bright blue, like so. And I'm going to add a little gradient to this. So I have an asset in here in the files in UI. I have a gradient background. I'm going to drop that in here. Let's zoom in on it and zoom out a bit. And we're going to drag this out so it fits the edges of the camera that we have here. I'm going to change the color of it to be, let's go with a kind of bluish color. So now we've got a little nice gradient here. Then we need to add in some buttons that we're going to interact with. So I'm going to go to my canvas, I'm going to right click, I'm going to create a UI Text Mesh Pro button. Oh no, that's just the Text Mesh Pro. What I want is a button Text Mesh Pro. Hold on, let's try this again. UI button Text Mesh Pro, there we go. And we'll just call this button for now. But we're going to make this look a good bit different than what it currently does. And we want all our buttons basically in the game to look the same as this button here. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a bit bigger, because that's not very visible to our players. We are kind of designing this with PC and mobile in mind in terms of laying things out. Let's auto size this up to be a good bit bigger too. I'm going to put the max size up to be 100 here. We're going to bold this as well, and we'll leave that at that color is perfectly fine. But we want to replace the graphics that we're using in this. So what I'm going to do is in the UI folder that we have here, if we scroll, if we have button selected here and scroll up to the image, I'm going to grab this yellow button one that we have here. I'm going to use this as the basis of our image. And then down here on the button component, I'm going to switch the transition from color tint to sprite swap. So now in different actions, basically, we'll have different sprites. So when we highlight the button, when we press the button, and when we select the button, we want to have different things happen here. So when it's highlighted, I'm going to use green button 1. When it's pressed, I'm going to use blue button 1. And when it's selected, I'm going to use red button 1. So now if I go ahead and play, the default is yellow. If I hover over it, it turns green, and hover off, it stays yellow. If I click it, it turns blue. And then if I release and hover off, it goes red. And that's because it's being activated. And if we have multiple buttons, it'll only be one button will be marked as red as the last button we pressed. Okay, so that's our buttons set up nicely. But we want to make this something that we can reuse. So we're going to go ahead and make this a prefab. So if you go to prefabs folder, we're going to create a new one called UI. And we're going to drag this button into that slot. So now, whenever we use a button anywhere in the game, we're going to just use the prefab of this button so that we can have it all have the same style, and then every button in the game will have the same kind of interaction like this. If you didn't do that, every time you wanted a new button, you'd have to go and create the button, so UI button text mesh pro, and you'd have to set up all those settings over and over again. So it's really handy to just create a button as a placeholder for us to use. Okay, so with that done, we need to make these buttons actually something we want to use. So I'm going to make this one the start button, and the text on it will say imaginatively start. And then let's make another one that is the quit button, like so. And again, it's just going to say quit on it. And we'll move this one down. So make sure we select the button and move that down. And we need to make these actually do something. And we're going to have a very, very simple script for this. Let's save this scene first of all as main menu, like so. And then in our scripts folder, we're going to create a C# script that we're also going to call main menu, like so. And then on our canvas, we're going to attach that on there. Give this a second to compile. There we go. And we can click and drag. Nope, doesn't want me to. Still not quite compiled yet. There we go. Okay. Let's open up the main menu script. And we're going to create two functions in here. We'll remove start and update. We're going to have one public void for start game and one public void for quit game. Nice and simple. So we'll do quit game first because that's very straightforward. To quit out of any game you make at any point in Unity, all you do is say application.quit, and that will immediately stop it running. But on our start game, what we want to do is load into a particular scene. So at the moment, we have everything we've been doing has been happening in the test level. So for now, we'll load to that test level. But to be able to load to it, we need to know the name of it that we want to load to. So we'll need a public string test. Sorry, not test level. What am I doing? Public string level to load. That'll be the name of the level we want to load to, and we're making it a string so that we're able to change it whenever we want to. And then in start game here, we're going to say we want to load into that. So we want to use Unity's scene management system, which is what we use to load stuff. And to be able to do that, we need to go up to the top here and say using Unity engine.scene management. And then in here we can say scene manager dot load scene, and we tell it the name of the scene we want to load to, which is level to load, like so. And then we can save this and jump back to our menu. And once that compiles, we need to enter the name of the level down here, like so. Now this is still going to cause a bit of an issue, and we'll deal with that in a moment. But for now, that's perfectly fine. And then on each of these buttons, we need to assign those functions to them. So let's select both of these buttons here. And then in the button component, we can add an action to happen on click. So on click is when the button is clicked. Then we're going to drag the canvas into this slot. And then for the start button, we're going to select main menu and start game. And for the quit button, we're going to say main menu and quit game. So we can save this, and let's go back in here. And there's a couple of things to note. Now, if I press quit, at the moment, nothing will happen. Because obviously we don't want our game to, we don't want to click on the quit button and it to quit out of the whole Unity editor. That wouldn't be great. So the application.quit doesn't actually do anything while we're in the editor, but when you've built it to be a full game, that will quit out of the game. The other thing is, if we click the start button now, we get an error, because it's trying to load the test level. But to be able to load any level in a game in Unity, Unity has to know that that scene has been added as something that should be loaded in the game. For example, we have a sample scene here. We don't ever want to have this sample scene included in the game. So when you want to have scenes that will be included, you have to go to File, Build Settings. And here at the moment in Build Settings, by default, it includes that sample scene that just gets included with Unity. So I'm going to delete that because we don't want that in here. What we do want in here is we want the main menu and we want our test level. because we want to be able to load to our test level. And one important thing to note is when you build the game for other people to play, the first scene that will load up when you start the game is whatever is the first scene here. So that's why we'll always put the main menu as the first scene in our build. And in the other levels, it doesn't matter really what order they're in. So we've got our main menu then, and now when I press play and if I click on start, it should load me into our test level with 1 second to play in the game, because that was the last setting we left it on. So let's quickly put our round manager, put this back up to 60 seconds, and let's go back to our main menu then, and we can go ahead and start, and we can jump into the game. So there we go. And we now have our main menu working correctly, which takes us into the game. One thing I'm going to very quickly do is that it's very bland here at the moment. So I'm going to very quickly add a particle system to this, which is going to be a gem fall effect. And this is going to be duration doesn't matter, emission doesn't matter. We're going to make the shape of it, and actually we're going to put the rotation to be 0. We're just going to do this one very quickly because we've seen how the particle system works. We're going to just do this one a little bit more of a fun way. Let's zoom into here. We're going to move this up above the top of the screen. We're going to make it nice and wide. We're going to make things, instead of floating upwards with a start speed of that, we're going to make start speed 0 and turn on gravity to be 0.25, say. And then the lifetime will be 3.5, so it's all falling out. And then in the renderer here, in our materials, we've got different gem particles. So I'm going to put gem particle 1 in here. And there we go. Look, we've got our gems. We're going to randomize the rotation of them, like so. So now we get different gems falling down. I'm going to do something else fun as well. Let's add some force over lifetime between two constants. So let's say 5, that's probably too much, 4 and -4. So now we got gems going in all different directions. Rotation over lifetime, they can all have some different speeds. So between 90 and -90. So there we go, they're all turning and falling at different rates. Then I'm going to duplicate this 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And each one is going to use a different gem particle. Let's select all of these and drop this renderer down. So gem particle 2, gem particle 3, gem particle 4, and gem particle 5. So if we select all these, there we go, look at them all flying away like that. There's way too many gems. Let's put the emission rate down to 5. There we go. And the force over lifetime, that's probably too much. 2 and -2. There we go. So now it looks a bit more interesting, at least. Our title screen, there's some fun things happening. So then we can start our game and go and play. So there we go. We've got our main menu working in the game.